This is so exciting. Lili just asked me if we've ever had a mother. And I told her that many years ago, probably 12 years ago, we had Susie Buffett and her late mother, and we had Cecile and the late Ann Richards. But this is the first time that we've had a son, Dara. So welcome.
Mothers. Thank you. I'm terrified.
So I'm going to give a very quick bit of background. So in 1979, at the time of the Iranian Revolution, when the Shah fell, the Khosrowshahi family had a major consumer products and pharmaceutical manufacturing business in Tehran. They were a very prominent family. And they left, and they came to Tarrytown, New York via France. And Dara was 9 years old. When Dara was 13 years old, his father returned to Iran to take care of his ill father and got detained for 6 years, leaving Lili and her 3 sons to fend for themselves, having given up pretty much all that you own.
Everything.
So tell us about that time. You were 13, Lili. You were a young mother with very young mother with 3 sons.
I think for the kids, the transition was much easier. You know, the one ever present in our family was family. So we had extended family in the U.S. We were lucky enough to be sent to a great school, so we knew how to speak English. So for the kids, it was kind of like a new adventure in an incredible country. I got introduced to the concept of cable TV, 35 channels. It was awesome. So I really do think that there's this enormous transition that my family went through. But children are malleable. Kids are able to adjust very quickly. And because we always had our family and our cousins around, we did not feel the brunt of the transition, I think, the way Mama and the rest of the family did. So I think it was much more difficult for them than it was for the kids.
Lili, were you afraid at the time?
Oh, it was very scary. It was a very scary time. You mean before we came, or when we came to this country?
When you arrived and when you found
we arrived, yes. When we arrived, right then the hostages were taken. So we all had visas which were immediately revoked. So it was actually a very, very scary time. And with everything that is going on now, I mean, it reminds me of the time when 2 FBI people showed up at our Tarrytown and told us that, you know, unless I don't remember what, and we had lawyers, we would be deported. So my heart really goes out to immigrants today.
And that was before. I wish I had asked this question yesterday, but I'd love a show of hands. How many people in this room are immigrants? Wow. How many people in this room are, and the immigrants, I would like you to keep your hands up. How many people in this room are daughters of immigrants? Yeah, immigrants, keep your hands up. A lot of you, a lot of you. Through the lens of what you experienced, Dara and Lili, yes, how do you look at the situation today?
Well, I just feel incredibly fortunate to have come to the U.S. Even though the hostage situation was going on. We had family here, so we had a support system to come to. We originally, when we moved here, we moved in with my uncle, right? And we came during a time when immigration in general and immigrants were welcome in America. I mean, we are an immigrant nation. Immigration has been, I believe, a force for incredible economic advancement. And it represents our core identity. And I think that a lot of Americans take for granted what we have. And because of where we came from and having lost everything, and then rebuilt something here, I think there's this deep sense of gratitude on my part, and I think our family's part, of being
Absolutely.
unbelievably fortunate to have come to this country, to have had a chance to have a great education, to have had parents who put everything that they had into our education. And listen, I do think that you want to have immigration laws that are updated, et cetera, but I think that for us to retain this core, this identity of a country where rule of law applies, where we are welcoming other talented people who have dreams and want to follow those dreams, I think that's what makes America special. The American dream is the greatest brand on earth, right? I mean, there's no brand like it. Everyone knows what the American dream represents, and everyone wants that dream, and I think we should do everything we can to retain both the power and the meaning behind that brand.
Absolutely.
Lili, you had limited money.
Yes.
What were your priorities in terms of raising your children and doing what you could with the money that you had?
We had very limited money, and we knew how much. And we put every penny. I'd never worked. I started working full-time, and every penny that we had, we put towards Dara's, and I have 3 sons, the 3 boys' education, and they went to private schools, and then they went to college. 2 of them went to Brown, and the other one went to Williams. So it was expensive, and we spent every penny. I remember at the time, coffee was 15 cents, and I would not buy, literally, I wouldn't buy a cup of coffee for myself.
I buy her a cup of coffee nowadays.
Yes.
Starbucks.
Very big of you, Dara.
I try. I'm paying back.
So I like to say, when I speak about leadership, that no leader is a born leader. Leadership, we all were basically born the same. And leadership is the result of the challenges and obstacles that you face and overcome along the way. So Dara, now we're really speeding up here. Dara spent, was it 12 years as CEO of Expedia?
13.
13
Yeah.
years. Built the company from, quadrupled the size of the company, about that, quadrupled, quintupled the size of the company as well as the market cap. He lands at Uber as the CEO, very competitive, big competition to who's going to be the new CEO of Uber to replace Travis Kalanick. Surprise, August of 2017, Dara Khosrowshahi, I still can't say it. Dara Khosrowshahi.
You can just say Dara.
Whose last name no one could pronounce. A lot of curiosity about this guy. Dara, you walked into a company that was just famous for a bro culture and a lot of things done wrong. How has your immigrant experience shaped the way you're approaching the turnaround at Uber?
God, I think it's a great question. For me, the first, I'd say, shaper has been my family, and there's this. My mom and I were talking this morning. There's this kind of deeply individualistic credo in the States where it's about the power of the individual. With where we came from, it's about the power of the family. It's about the power of the collective. And we always knew that regardless of what we did as kids, et cetera, the collective was always going to pick us up. And that, I think, allowed us to feel safe in taking risks, and achieving. And also, it was always like there was this expectation of the collective, that it was not only there to pick you up, but it was also there to push you. And so for me, leadership is something that is about a collective. I love succeeding as a team. I love building teams. I love the idea of going, coming together as a cause with, brothers and sisters in arms and achieving together. And I think that, it's shaped how I think about Uber going forward, which is the first and most important aspect of the company was about the team and culture and shaping that. And by the way, we're not done. But for me, this leadership coming from the collective, and leadership not just being from that one person on top, but leadership being an expectation of everybody at the company. I think people kind of equate management and leadership. You know, management is about the organization. Management is a skill. Leadership is about the heart, and everyone at the company can be a leader regardless of where you are. And I think that's the kind of expectation that we're imbuing within Uber, which is it's not just about one leader, but it's everyone at the company coming together to shape our culture, to be a force for good. And, you know, it's an incomplete task at this point. We have a long way to go.
We're going to open it up in a minute. Think of your questions. Lili, what is the most important piece of advice that you've ever given to your son?
Stay humble. Be humble. Be humble, be ethical. I mean, ethics was really a big part of their education. And because of the revolution, I always think that you can be up there, but then you fall. So don't brag. That goes to our bragger-in-chief. Sorry.
You tell him, Lili. You tell him. Just turn to the camera and tell him.
Be humble, be humble, be humble. That's it.
It's when I'm with my family, like I'm the little brother. Like I'm the little cousin. I've got no rights whatsoever. And by the way, that's how I like it. Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
it's that the family goes beyond individual achievement, et cetera. There was always expectation. I was joking with Mom this morning.
Yeah.
I remember one day we got our grades and Mom looks at the grades and I had an A-. And she looks and she goes, "That's okay." And that's all she needed to say. She didn't get angry at me. She just said, "That's okay." And I looked at her and like I wanted her to yell at me so I could complain. She said, "That's okay." You know, and that's it. And like, this is, you know, and it's a very soft-spoken expectation that she put within us, and who the heck knows how it happened, but one way or the other it worked.
You build a good culture there. Who has, yes.
Shira Bina, Sobatun Becher.
Motsheke.
You know, first of all, I was going to ask a business question, but that whole thing about the family and the collective, my mother, I'm Iranian, has said is always the reason why you don't see generational child abuse in Iran, because if anybody gets a wind of anything, the whole family descends on protecting the children. It's a very different context.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you about the business. So culture, my line of work, it's one thing to change your corporate culture with the people you work with, but most of your workforce are independent contractors. And yet you're in a service business where the brand really emerges in people's interactions. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to address enculturating your independent contractors where you have a requirement for independence and so on?
Well, we are now very actively building our product and really, I think, treating our drivers as partners. So when we go out and build out the new driver app and the services, et cetera, for the first time, I think we are now listening to our drivers and we are building out our services in concert with them. So I think that's one, which is, you know, if you're going to call your drivers partners, then treat them like partners. And then the second is we are looking, for example, in Europe, we announced a new service with Allianz, in concert with Allianz, where our drivers in the EU are getting protections. They're getting health care, they're getting maternity leave, paternity leave, accidental coverage, et cetera, so that you don't get this world where independent contractors are the have-nots and full-time employees are the haves. I think that where the world is going is much more, it used to be like you trusted, you got married to a company, right? And I think that work should be about work, not about a company. And so where we would like to take independent contractors is to take it into a state where it's not a have-not state, and you can create a framework of benefits, et cetera, around the work as well. We have a long way to go, but at least in Europe, we've gotten one step closer.
Good question. Yes, back here.
Hi, Gina Mastantuno, CFO of Ingram Micro. Full disclosure, I worked with Dara at IAC a number of years ago.
Way back.
Way back. He actually hired me.
Ah.
And I tell people often that I refer to Dara in some advice that he's always given me. So we were building a finance team out basically from scratch at the time. And he always told me, make sure you're hiring the best and the brightest. Don't be afraid that they want your job in 2 years. You want them to want your job in 2 years so you can do something different and keep growing. My question is about culture. We talked a lot over the last couple of days about diversity and inclusion. Obviously at Uber, you're doing a lot to combat some of the issues you had there. Where are you finding success, and how, because I'm in tech as well now, and how can we help drive the tone at the top? Because I think it starts there. And what are you doing at Uber, and how are you finding success in that area?
I think it's too early to call success, honestly. So it's a work in process for us, and for me, it's about bringing in talent. So for example, we brought in Bo Young Lee as head of diversity and inclusion. We just announced Nikki Krishnamurthy, who has worked with me for Expedia, at Expedia for years and years. Rebecca, our new CMO. Part of it is getting women leaders within the company who can help drive diversity and inclusion. And then now what we're doing is we're building the tooling so that we can actually measure not only how we bring people in, but more importantly, how we develop diverse talent within the company in terms of gender, in terms of underrepresented people of color, for example, and then looking at retention as well. So we are at the I think the intent is absolutely there within the company. The company understands that it's in our interest to build out diversity, especially because our driver and rider world is so diverse. And now we are actually starting to execute. So I think the team is there. We're very early in the execution path, but I think it's too early to declare success. But I can declare intent, and I think the tools are there to make it happen.
Hold on, Linda.
We can hear you, bud.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Linda Addison. I have the same question for both of you. Those of us in this room who are first-generation Americans, I suspect we have in common that we grew up hearing from our parents. In America, we could achieve anything we wanted as long as we became doctors, lawyers, or engineers. And so, Lili, I would like to know what options you gave your sons, and Dara, what options are you giving your children?
Yeah, I total independence. I don't like the word independent, but they had the possibility of choosing whatever they wanted. So we didn't tell them to become lawyers and doctors at all.
Well, it was whatever you wanted as long as it was a doctor or an engineer.
Yes.
Lawyers, no. But doctors and engineers,
Doctors
yes.
are engineers. In our family, I cannot tell you how important family was and still is. I mean, it was not I who decided, or even Dara who decided. It was as though a whole clan. As I said, in our case, the cliche of it takes a village to raise a child is not a cliche. It's true. I mean, it wasn't just my decision to tell him, or I don't think his decision alone. It was the whole family, and somehow, without verbalizing it, we knew, he knew.
So of course in school I studied bioelectrical engineering,
Yeah.
so I could be a doctor or an engineer. So it follows I went in the straight and narrow. But I think one of the underrepresented aspects here is actually the Iranian culture that we came from is a culture that values education and values education for men and women. I think 52% of college graduates in Iran are now
Right
women.
now, under this, yeah.
Yeah, and the family was very much a matriarchy, and listen, we lost everything, and there wasn't kind of this stated intention of you better measure up, but it was just there. There was an expectation, and again, there was both. There was a combination of support from your family, but then there was also this, I wouldn't call it outward competition, but definitely expectation for you to do well. And we knew that my parents took education very seriously. And as a result, my generation, I've got cousins, all of whom are, incredibly successful. And I think it all comes from that core of a family putting education as the paramount thing, and then creating freedom within that. Because once you've got the education, you have so much optionality in life, and we were super, super lucky to be put in that position.
Dara has 4 children. Anything that to Linda's question, what's the sort of career advice, life advice that you're giving to your 4 children now? Is there any?
My daughter is I've got no problems. It's for her to be passionate about what she does, and she is. I do want her to study computer science, and as long as she takes computer science and then does whatever she wants. So that's a little limiting factor. But listen, it's about being driven. It's about being passionate. It's about working hard. One of my sons wants to be an Uber driver, so I'm encouraging that as well.
Good. We need to wrap up, but Lili is the daughter of a very prominent doctor in Tehran. And she sort of broke tradition in Iran by marrying someone. It was an arranged marriage. And her parents made an agreement with her husband's family that Lili would be able to go to college. And you went to college and were pregnant with your 2 older brothers when you were in college, which was incredibly unusual.
Yeah, I was the only girl who was married, the only woman who was married in college. Yes, it was very...
So my 2 older brothers were listening to college courses while they were in the womb. That's why they were smart ones.
And they're very smart, but Dara did not go to college with me. He's still okay.
Lili, you are a very powerful woman, and we thank you for being here. And Dara, now you're officially a most powerful man. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
This was great. Wonderful. Mwah.